Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Blue Soak. Again, John Dave and myself are going to look back over Leinster's good victory against Connacht at the weekend, all the other Pro 12 games, and look forward to our game against Munster down in Thomond Park on Stevens's Day. So boys, 21-11 against Connacht. We're slowly getting the road back on.
It's something to build on, Jason. It's definitely something to build on. We were a lot hungrier in defence. We were swarming all over them actually at points of the match in defence. Line speed was really good. We were, we didn't look fancy, but we looked like we're getting the bit of grunt back that we can, something we can build on. As I said, Jennings back is huge. He was bossing everybody round, and I know he scored a try off the back of a maul, but it's great to see him back, and it's even better the fact that he's going to be with us for Munster next week, because he always plays well against Munster. Never has a bad game against them. But, also Kirshner following up for that try. You do that 10 times, you get one try, or you do that 20 times.
If you look at that video,
it was very funny.
The only one that did it.
I can't remember whether which one of you it was, and whether it made the final cut of last week's episode. But we were talking about Issa following up kicks and kicks coming off the post, and then a couple of days later,
Same does the same thing.
What we'd hoped for, which was very good.
What an international standard winger would do.
Yeah,
but
exactly,
you can see that the fellas on the team who perhaps didn't do it.
Sometimes guys get a bit lazy, and they get a bit lazy maybe at
79
minutes when you're clearly going for a set piece. I mean, to a certain extent, Kirshner was expecting a kind of a failure, worst case scenario, which is what you're supposed to really be doing. And one guy who I was really impressed with was Aaron Dundon, because for the first time in quite a while, we had a go-to set piece. We had two go-to set pieces, but particularly the line out was something that we could rely on. It hasn't been in a while. And a lot of that is down to the accuracy of Dundon's throwing, and of course his hooking in the scrum. He was helped by the changes to the front row, of course, because I still think that I think Jack McGrath is either carrying a knock or is playing on fumes. I think he's used up all his schminutes for the time being. I think
it's the knock really more than anything else. But another man that I haven't seen get any kudos anywhere is, or not much anyway, is Tadhg Furlong, who I thought put himself a bit. He found himself in the middle of the park making long passes and stuff.
Yeah, I thought he did very well. Yeah,
he was turning over balls. I know he got binned for turning one of them over, but
I think we expect more from Tadhg Furlong than we do from Michael Bent. Even though Michael Bent's an international, Tadhg Furlong not. Tadhg Furlong was part of a group of props, including Marty Moore, Jack McGrath, Jack O'Connell, maybe even Tadhg Byrne a bit further behind, who's kind of been lauded.
Tadhg Byrne's second row.
Or who am I talking about? There's another one. That doesn't matter.
Peter Byrne, Peter Dooley.
Peter Dooley, sorry. Yeah. Who's been lauded kind of in anticipation. So when he does come up and play well, maybe he doesn't get a lot of credit because people expect that. But for a guy that age with that level of experience, it is actually a good performance.
I thought he was great. Yeah. I thought he was the way you want. We were saying last week about Joe Schmidt wanting stuff on top of your nuts and bolts. He wants the fancy stuff on top. Well, he's given the nuts and bolts, but he's also good at the fancy stuff on top. He's a good passer of the ball, and he can do all the he can do stuff you wouldn't see a tight head do generally.
Although he will of course be up for a disciplinary hearing before the props union
for
spin passes.
All right, yeah. Absolutely.
Well, another guy who thought was pretty good was Kane Douglas. Like he was probably his best game. But
very aggressive.
I think somebody was saying that he was interviewed after the game, and he kind of said, "Well, I haven't been hitting my straps, but mitigating circumstances. I've played a long season in Australia, and I'm just settling into a new city halfway around the world. So you have to take the human element.
That's absolutely true. I agree with you entirely. I mean, the guy has been playing pretty much non-stop for over a year, and he is settling into a new climate, new culture, new way of playing the game. But the thing is, for us now, when we sign a marquee player, we can't afford to have him bed in. It's not like it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago, because we had a lot of players. We had a lot of quality players. We need them to hit the ground running pretty much straight away. And it's unfortunate for him that he's found himself in that situation. But it was good to see him play so well.
Yeah, he was very aggressive, and he took pleasure in it as well. I wouldn't. What he said after the game, he was more just saying that he's finally settled in, and he should have been there earlier, but he wasn't. I don't think he played the long season card or anything. I don't think he mentioned any of that, but he being that aggressive, and you could see when he was interviewed, he was really enjoying the aggression and getting stuck in, and looking forward to doing it next week, which again will be very important. We'll need guys like him.
Someone's work in the ruck was absolutely vicious, and we haven't had that since Nathan Hines. That level of barely controlled fury.
Yeah, and he was up early. He did do a late hit or two as well. He got a little bit over anxious, but he'll find that line sooner.
Yeah, and obviously Reed's got man of the match, but again he looked good when he
looked
sharp
excellent
when he got the ball.
I thought he played very well.
Breaks.
Yeah.
And of course Luke continues to improve or play very well.
You see, the thing for Luke is, when Luke gets back, Luke on form is one of the elite backs in world rugby, not just in European rugby. He is brilliant. He is a superb player. So it's just a matter of him, getting enough games under his belt and getting his body back used to playing regular rugby. Because when Luke hits those straps, it's good night, Irene.
Yeah, good night. Laws of physics nil. Luke Fitzgerald won.
But it wasn't all plain sailing. We were only 3 points up with a few minutes to go, and
I think you could see what we were doing. It was like Munster in the Heineken Cup final in 08. We were just hitting ruck, one out passes and the whole thing, just rucking. And when we got the penalty, to me, because it was fairly well in front of the post, to me it looked like they just said, well, look, if we put the ball up in their 5 metre line, we'll at least be able to, if we take a kick, there might be a minute left after it. If we do that, we'll probably be able to maul it in on time. If we don't score,
it's just a matter of what wasted the most time.
Exactly. Yeah. If we don't score, we don't score. But sure, we had a bit of luck, and Kane, the other two lads were asleep, the two Connacht lads, and Kane was just. Zane even was just.
It would have been really impressive if it was Kane Douglas in that kind of pace.
Yeah.
But why don't we have a quick look at the first try, Jennings' try? It was great to see him back on the pitch again. He'd been obviously he suffered from a bit of injury, but he was.
And his last game was against Connacht as well. That's where he got injured.
One of the few I've been very disappointed with our mauling in this match as well. It's been very fractured. Even there it's fractures.
Yeah.
But at least this time we managed to keep control of it. But it's something that's going to have to be addressed. That's nice, and we got the try and everything. But what Seldon is wonderful in the case.
They were down a guy.
Yeah, they were down a guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
What Seldon is wonderful in the Leinster Maul these days. It was not going to take a whole lot more to fix. I think it's just more errors of people not knowing what's going to happen next, rather than the actual technique or anything like that.
Then if you've got a fella in the back of the bus like Geno, reminds me a bit like Neil Back
those
years ago for Leicester. He must have scored dozens of tries for them at the back of the ball.
Or Anthony Foley.
But you've got somebody who's we all know Geno's leadership capabilities, but when he's controlling things at the back of a maul, he is going to be telling the guys I wanted to go left, slow down, or
you could hear him nearly up in the grandstand where and he was fairly aggressive in clearing out rooks himself.
He got the TMO went back for
one to have a look.
Yeah. He got I say he got away with it. It wasn't a matter of getting away with it, but it was the kind of aggressive clearance that we've missed.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've missed that kind of play. We've missed that little bit of nous. Jamie's a very good player. He's a world class player, but sometimes you wonder, is he willing to get his hands dirty the way that? And I don't mean that in a bad way. Is he willing to do, the thing that you hire?
But that was just a hard tackle. That was no maliciousness in that. There wasn't nasty or vicious.
No, well, the ruling doesn't cover maliciousness, really, does it?
I think
it's the intent, surely. It's the way it should be interpreted. But I'm just saying it's the way it should be interpreted.
Possibly.
It's your man. Jennings went in there. He cleared out the row. I think it was on Rue, was it? He cleared it out. He didn't try and drive him in and break his neck in the ground. He just took him out aggressively. Yeah. End of story. Shouldn't even be looked at.
Yeah, but as an open side flanker, Geno does an awful lot of stuff that, if it was seen in the cold grey light of day, would not be smiled upon by referees or mothers or whatever. But you need one of those guys in your team, and I think we've missed that. I think we've missed that kind of counterintelligence operative that you see kind of.
Absolutely.
Jamie's a soldier, but Geno's the kind of guy you drop behind enemy lines.
for the
And
Black
a lot
Ops.
of,
Yeah.
a lot of successful teams have those guys.
Oh, they have.
Oh,
Every
yeah.
successful team has it. Did you look at the most successful team in the world and their most successful player, Richie McCaw?
Yeah, yeah.
Is one of
You know,
those.
England had Neil Back. You know, great team, great player. You know, was not adverse to doing the odd bad thing.
The odd hand.
Look at Finlay Calder and Jim Staples that time. Back in the what was
91.
it?
90s.
91 World Cup. Jim Staples was our best player in that World Cup, and he was taken out of it ruthlessly.
Yeah.
You know, so
We could all do with a Shane Jennings.
So we have a look at the second try. Obviously, this is the last play of the game where we had a penalty and we went in for a touch.
The Jamie Dodger.
sometimes you just gotta, you know, hope for the best.
It just all fell there. The waves parted and there was our boy Zeno.
But you have to admire him. Like, he was good 15
was
metres ahead of
chasing it,
anyone
yeah.
else and wide awake to that possibility.
Yeah.
Johnny Giles always says about strikers in soccer that a great striker always assumes that the right thing is going to fall in his lap every single time. That's why he makes the runs. And it might
it
only
does.
happen 1 in 100 times, but it does. And it's the same with Zane.
Mm-hmm.
He assumed that it was going to work out for him, and it did.
Yeah, well, when Madigan missed that kick against Harlequins, that was what I said to you last week.
Yeah.
If we had Issa
Issa would have
Nasewa,
made that chase.
he
yeah.
would have been chasing that, and if the ball came back off the post like that, he would have had a fair chance of getting it, you know. So hopefully we get a few more runs like that out of Zane, and we can build on it.
I thought Connacht were sloppy. Like, that was an incident there. There was a few times that I think might have been the same player.
I thought they were a little naive.
They
maybe.
had the ball and your man
Times.
just shook the ball in behind him when it was
Yeah.
there, and like that score line was quite flattering for us. 21 of
Was.
them.
I would have liked it to be a bit tighter because I wanted Connacht to get the losing bonus point, frankly.
Well,
Just to keep the pressure on.
Yeah.
the
on-
players and coach didn't seem to.
Yeah.
They were quite happy to take the losing bonus point away because they felt it could come back into it
Oh,
later.
you see, that's what a team's going to do. I
And
mean, I was thinking
take no chances,
I was
you
thinking
know.
of bigger picture and, you know, a bit of vindictiveness towards the Welsh. But I tell you,
Of
you are
course.
correct in saying Connacht were sloppy because I mean we were saying last week when everybody get down to the ODS and see Mills Mullally in a play, like one of the great All Blacks, one
was
of the
quiet
great
enough, yeah.
fullbacks of all time. What his first two things that he did was to drop two balls,
Yeah.
balls that he would have caught, you know, eyes closed. 8 times out of 10, it's just those 2 times he dropped them, and there was a certain sloppiness in Connacht's play. I'm not sure why. I think perhaps maybe the idea that they were maybe not tagged as favourites, but there was an air of favourite over them. You know,
Poisoning them.
yeah, they kind of transferred the, if you like, the miasma of underdog was kind of transferred not entirely, but in part towards the Leinster team, and maybe they weren't comfortable.
They were
It takes a
unlucky.
while for a team
They
to
were
learn
unlucky
how to
enough.
win as favourites. It took Leinster a long time, it took Munster a long time to learn how to win as favourites. Maybe Connacht, that's something they have to learn how to do.
If you look at two incidents in the match, like I thought Connacht played very well. They looked a little bit naive at times, but they did a great game. They were up for it. But you know, the one we've just looked at, saying Kirshner's try, that was very unlucky. But also the try that they didn't get, like there was a hair's breadth in that.
Oh yeah.
If that had been I mean, it wasn't a try. But if he had it just
Even though the out half had about 50 square feet or 50 square metres to
To
kick
land
the
the
ball
ball,
in, and
yeah.
he didn't. He kicked
Well,
it right to the furthest extremity of the pitch.
I actually think that's the one weakness that Connacht still haven't addressed. I mean,
Yeah.
fair play to them for picking up guys from, you know, the lower levels like us with Fanning and and McGrath. But I do think that's one area that they haven't addressed. And I think that, you know, there's out halves around the country that may be available to move next season.
Who knows?
Who knows? You know, maybe Connacht can pick up one there.
who knows?
But I do think it's a weakness. I mean, you were saying about that, and a team. I mean, as bad and all as Leinster have been playing in recent weeks. I mean, a team takes its cue off its out half. If its out half's not playing well, then the team's not going to play well. And if its out half doesn't believe in itself, then the team won't believe in itself. At least one thing about Goppers is, I mean, he's never lost his self-belief. He might have been playing poorly, so we've been playing poorly. Connacht, I'm not too sure if their out halves actually believe that they're good enough to be playing at that level. Just not sure. I don't know. I don't know the guys.
He's from Lansdowne, isn't he? Like,
Yeah.
he's just playing AIL with Lansdowne.
I only see them every, you know, a couple of times
No,
every year, so I don't.
Ronaldson. You're thinking of. I
You're
don't
thinking
know.
of Craig Ronson, this
Yeah.
is Jack Carty. But I don't know if they're quite at the level that Connacht... I mean, because Connacht have invested quite heavily in their back line. I'm not sure if they've invested heavily enough at out half.
Oh, one of the best things I saw was somebody referring to Bundy Eki as a transit van in shorts. That was an excellent description.
He's a big monster.
He's
of
a big
fella,
lad,
isn't he?
and
like, it's what he's got another obviously 3 years to go before he's qualified for Ireland.
well, let's not worry about him being qualified for Ireland yet. Let's worry about him getting Connacht into the Champions Cup next year.
I
That's
mean, one of the interesting, if
what
you
I'd
like,
like to see.
subplots of the game was, I thought, well, for me anyway, was Fitzgerald against Henshaw.
Yeah.
Because obviously Henshaw is, to a certain extent, the man in possession of that number 13 jersey. Whereas Luke has been out with injury, but he's been a man who's been tipped for it in the past. He's always been the next big thing.
He could be.
I was interested to see how they went against one another. Now, I don't know, but you're taking it. I thought Luke came out on top in that battle.
Yeah. Henshaw was quiet enough, or well, he was kept quiet enough.
I think the ball was better quality that Luke was getting than
and he's a more experienced player. In fairness to Henshaw, I mean, Luke has been there, done Lions tour, blah blah blah. But it reminds me of something that I heard. I heard Brian O'Driscoll say on the radio. I think it was last week. Something I never think about Luke Fitzgerald is his physical presence. Like I was thinking, well, Henshaw's a big lad and whatever, but then you look at Luke Fitzgerald, and he's 6'1", 6'2". He's a big guy, heavy guy, you know. So he's not going to get bowled over by somebody like Henshaw, which is something I hadn't really thought about until I saw them kind of, if you like, mano a mano. And while Henshaw is very impressive physically, Luke was able to stand up to him. You know, that's something.
And even Noel Reid is probably 6'1" also,
yeah, these guys are big guys.
Has bulked up a bit in the last year from where he was. I thought we handled the two of those guys very well in defence. We snuffed them out.
I thought one of the worries would be with that Bundy, actually, like you say, the transit van and shorts will be able to use his physical power against Noel Reid, who, you know, as you say, is a tall guy, but can be quite willowy.
Yeah.
But no, he wasn't allowed to. Reid, actually, it has to be said, in the last 18 months, Reid's defence has come on in leaps and bounds. You'd have
from a very low base.
No, but he defends like a good inside centre now,
he does,
you know?
Yeah. It's great. Very happy with his progress in both attack and defence. Still have Darcy for next week, if it was me. But you know, if he turned up in the 12 jersey, I wouldn't be crying into me beer either.
Well, that win anyway leaves us moves up to the 4th place, and we're unbeaten in the league now since the game against Munster, actually back in October in the Aviva. But there was some other matches. Munster were actually beaten by Glasgow 21-18. Thought it was a poor day at the office for them. Like they
really let it slip. All right. They were 18-9 ahead, and they just didn't close the deal.
They didn't close the deal at all.
They were just.
It's hard to know what to say about that game, to be honest with you.
But JJ missed some sitters, you know, and missed 2 of them in a row. Then you like they're going through that's their 3rd loss in a row. Would have been their 4th if Humphreys had got that kick in the last minute again when they were playing Ulster.
Yeah.
It's very hard to know what to say about that game because for start, well, you know, we expect Glasgow to be quite good at home anyway. So losing away to Glasgow isn't exactly a disgrace.
No shame.
What's surprising is, as you say, Munster failed to close the game out. But the guys who used to close the game out for Munster don't play for Munster anymore. Yeah. That's the thing. Those guys, those go-to guys, the guys who knew how to from 30 out with 5 points or 9 points in it, knew how to run the game down. They don't play for Munster, they're gone. So you've got a new generation of guys. I mean, even they brought on Ian Keatley, for example, and even he didn't really, you know, make any significant difference to changing the way that the tide had started to flow against them.
Yeah, and if you give Glasgow that amount of possession, they'll find a way around you. You know, they're those Fijian lads. Incidentally, I just saw it today. I don't know if you saw it.
I did. Yeah, he's off to Bath.
He's off to Bath. Nick Matualu, your friend. You may not have to pronounce that name for another.
The one with the easiest name to pronounce, isn't even.
Yeah, so that's a bit disappointing for Glasgow.
I'm a bit disappointed for the Pro 12 as well.
No, I don't think so. Actually, I would disagree. I mean, yeah, he never started any Glasgow's big games anymore. I mean, Pyrgos was their guy. Matualu's great. But see, the thing
and he can play on the wing as well.
Matualu's great, and he's great fun to watch. He's brilliant. I love watching him. I wouldn't have him on my team though.
But isn't that great for the league?
Well,
to have a guy who's great to watch who doesn't play for your team.
Would it not be better if all the players were as good as Pyrgos?
Yeah. Then there's rumours coming in that some of the Welsh guys are going to be poached off by some of the English. Then Butler comes out during the week and says, well, throw another spanner in the works. He says, well, the best way for Welsh rugby to go ahead would be, I don't know how it would work. He says, we should have only 2 teams competing in the European Cup. So in other words, they're like a representative team.
Oh, I think they'd be very lucky to have 2 teams competing in the European Cup next season.
Possibly. But what he wants is just 2 teams, everyone merged into just 2 teams. But those teams only playing in the European Cup. He wants to go back to the full league of Welsh clubs in the league.
I don't know.
Away with the regions.
I don't think Welsh
It'll never happen.
What it wants. No, your man's going to Bath, but that's because Bath needed to get a scrum half in because
fingers getting on.
No, because they'd signed. The rumor was they'd signed Will Genia after the World Cup on huge money, and now the Premiership have announced that they're going to be investigating
Bath and Saracens,
and various other clubs for breaking the salary cap. So they can't have him on their books. So the rumour is he's been traded to, I think, Toulon, certainly to some French club anyway, to get him his contract, his pre-contract has been sold, and now they've got this guy in as the next guy. But you know, I wouldn't read too much into it, to be honest with you.
It looks like that they're cutting down, certainly from the rumours going around, they're cutting down by one the number of foreign players that are allowed.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I saw that it was reported in two papers on the day, and one paper said it was being cut to 4 regardless of projects, and the other paper just said something about 4 players plus a project. So I don't think that's been clarified.
It's hard to know. It's one of these.
Or will it be even clarified?
We used to know where we stood, and now we don't. But, that's just the way of it. It'll be interesting to see what happens with a couple of moves. I mean, there's a couple of moves in you. I mean, Lydiate is back now back in Wales. He's with Ospreys. There's talk that other guys are coming home, and maybe John Davies might be coming home. I don't know if there's anything to that. Toulon seem to have signed every single slightly too old player in the world for after the World Cup. They've signed Manonu. They signed, who else did they sign?
They didn't sign Dan Carter.
They didn't sign Dan Carter. No,
he's replacing Johnny.
Yeah, he's replacing Johnny.
Who seems to have got a serious knock. It was his 4th concussion this season. Apparently, and he's out for at least a minimum 12 weeks until February.
Well, we don't know how long he's out.
That raises a very
the IRFU will see him. He'll be in Carlton House.
Well, I believe I was listening to, just before I came over, I was listening to Jackman on the radio, and he was saying that there's some protocol. All the French players have to go to one particular neurosurgeon in France, and they're very strict on it. Their union is very strict on it, and the French, the
Players
Association, the Players League, the Players Union and the French League are extremely strict on it. To go to one particular neurosurgeon, and if you suffer 3 or more concussions in a season, mandatory.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, that suits the IRFU. If they want to rest, if they want to bench him, he's
going to miss the first game.
Hold on.
No, he's not. No, see, that's the thing. He's not. The IRFU doesn't subscribe to a minimum period of time for concussion. Its method is continuous assessment. So the IRFU could decide he's free to play on the first day of January.
Whatever about all of that, the guy has been stood down until the 14th of February.
Yeah, you see,
hold on.
Yeah, I know exactly.
What's on the 14th of February?
On the 14th of February.
We're the second game
France.
against France. So a French doctor is going to decide whether the Ireland out half, or the date when the Ireland out half is allowed to play, is the date we're playing France. That's just, I'm not saying there's anything wrong or there's anything dodgy going on. I'm just saying it's teeing it up for a big bit of media frenzy coming up to that.
What they're going to do is they're going to get some of the more gullible journalists to get in full on concussion porn mode again. Without really looking into the subject, without knowing any of the circumstances behind it. I mean, it's probably escaped these guys' notice that the match is on the 14th of February.
Don't know.
But the thing is, the IRFU will look at him when he's over here for Christmas, and they'll make the decision, not the French, not Racing Metro, and not the FFR.
Well, we'll see how it all pans out. The important thing to stress is that Johnny Sexton's health is more important than any match with France or any, the guy has the rest of his life to live, and we wouldn't be grudging.
Ironically, France were of a certain amount of France were impressive to a certain extent during the autumn, but I don't think we'd need Johnny Sexton to beat them in Dublin.
Ooh, brave words there, Dave.
I don't think we would, because I don't think that that French team is going to travel all that well. And when it was put to them in the autumn, in the one real big test, they lost quite badly. So
the one thing you can't predict is what French team are going to turn up, and if the wrong one turns up for us, we'll need Johnny Sexton and everything else going for us.
Well, one team who did show up was the Ospreys against Ulster.
Oh yeah,
that was a surprising performance. They're
the men now.
They looked impressive.
They're the men. As far as I'm concerned, they're the target for top. They've played a lot of their top away games. I think we discussed this a couple of weeks ago. They've already played us, Munster, Ulster, and I think they've only Glasgow left to go to. So they've got a lot of their hard away games over with. They're in flying form. And, okay, they didn't do too well in Europe, but that's actually a good thing.
Well, for them in the league.
For them in the league. So I think they're the men to beat now. And them and Glasgow are top at the moment, and I'd say it's hard to see past the two of them.
There's so few points, and they're only 4 points ahead of us.
It's not over, I think, but I'm just saying
all the media could not wait to write off the Ospreys. The Welsh media in particular, not wait to write off the Ospreys at the beginning of the season.
One true region.
Yeah. And in fairness, I was, because I knew that we'd be talking about that. I looked at that, and we didn't. We said the Ospreys were the only real team in Wales, and that they have all these young players, etc., etc., etc. And we kind of wiped out the hopes of the likes of Cardiff, which
Cardiff were supposed to, come third in the league according to some pundits during the summer.
It was just ridiculous, and Ospreys are playing kind of like we'd expect Ospreys to play. I mean, they are, and they always have been, and they until they change the system again, they always will be probably the best Welsh region.
They don't have much depth though, so the only thing is that us and Munster have them away during the Six Nations, and they're going to be missing Biggar and Webb to Wales, and
possibly even Ashley Beck.
Well, they'll probably be missing a few, but I mean, Biggar and Webb are the Welsh pairing at the moment, and they're also the Ospreys' main halfbacks. So
they were very good. They were very good
against your
Ulster.
halfbacks.
Ulster are on a losing streak. They're both losing on the table, on the pitch, but they're losing. Their heads are gone. That team's heads are gone.
They do seem to be in very bad place.
Something has to be done. There has to be either they have to go away for a week somewhere and sit down and find themselves.
It was amazing, like they got off to such a flyer of a start under Les Kiss. And he kind of goes back to the Irish camp, and Doak comes in and they seem to have fallen asunder.
Well, the joke seems to be that Munster have an inexperienced coach. Leinster have a coach that doesn't look like he's good enough, and the Ulster seem to have managed to have combined the two. But however, that's not my words.
I don't necessarily know that. Maybe Les Kiss had got that dead cat bounce that the new manager often gets, or a new coach often gets, and because there have been frailties in the Ulster psyche that we've seen exposed.
Could just be that Les Kiss is good and Doki isn't as good.
Well, there's a whole variety of things. I mean, Les Kiss could well be very, very good. But I think that there's problems in that Ulster team, and I think that Les Kiss maybe was able to plaster over them, but they were gonna show the cracks were gonna come through eventually, because that Ulster team has been holed time and time again below the waterline. Eventually, it's gonna sink.
We shall see.
Well, they've sunk
to 5th place at the moment. Anyway.
They have, but like they just seem to be in free fall. Like they're out of Europe practically after round 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then round 4, say, but. Definitely out of Europe now.
Their entire season is dependent on the fitness of Ruan Pienaar. That's it.
And his knee is twisted again.
Mm-hmm.
So
how much are they going to get out of him this season?
I suppose if you do lose your starting halfbacks, Jackson is gone for a while as well. So,
and here come Connacht up on the rails. They're pretty close to Ulster now.
Yeah, well, that moves us on. That's who they're actually playing at the weekend.
If you were an Ulster fan, you had a choice of who you could have back next week for the rest of the season, Pienaar or Jackson. Who would you take?
Pienaar.
Yeah, me too.
Well, he's probably one of the best players in the world, know.
I'd have Pienaar back every time. The problem isn't Jackson. The problem isn't that they're losing their half backs. It's that they've lost the half back. It's Pienaar. Pienaar for them is everything.
Apparently his knee's okay, they're saying. Whoever they are. So we'll see.
The shadowy cabal.
We'll see. Does he show up next week? But you probably remember. I think it was the year we won the Magners League. That Ulster ended up second last in the league and Connacht were last, and there was only 4 points between them. There was a match to decide which of them would be
if Connacht
not in the Heineken Cups.
If Connacht had rested some of their players for a Amlin semi-final, Challenge Cup semi-final against Toulon, and concentrated on the Ulster game instead, they would have qualified for the Heineken Cup that year.
They would have had a better chance of it anyway.
Yeah, but Ravenhill is sold out for the game. There's there's a lot of interest obviously in it. But you just wonder, like, a team that's has its head is just gone, and then you've got Connacht whose tails are up. Okay, the scoreline suggests that they were comprehensively beaten by Leinster, but that wasn't really the case, and
we were very unlucky.
There was only 3 points in it with 2 minutes to go.
It's yet another story of Connacht heading home, with a scoreline that doesn't really reflect the distance between the teams or the game that's just preceded. Connacht don't really have a great record against Ulster, and unlike against Leinster or Munster, they don't have their chip on the shoulder about Ulster for whatever reason. So Connacht have traditionally done worse in Ravenhill than they have in Dublin.
Yeah.
They've never won there.
So it'll be interesting to see
Barely.
how they turn things around. Do they have the quality to? Certainly they do.
Yeah.
They're certainly a team good enough to win up there, especially the way that Ulster are playing. Whether they will or not, a lot of rugby happens in players' heads, you know.
Yeah, but look at the amount. There must be huge pressure on those Ulster players. Like considering their results,
Absolutely.
considering where they are in the league. Like their season could fall asunder if they lose this game.
Yeah.
And they've got a lot of we call them new fans. There are a lot of people they've attracted with their
Double the size of the stadium.
Esprit de corps has dragged in all these.
There's
new
at least
guys
5,000 people, in there every week
that wouldn't
who
have
weren't
been
there before. So,
Yeah.
which is great. Don't get us wrong, it is great.
Hopefully they'll hang
But,
around.
You know, if the team's not going well. But then the thing is, when Ulster were dreadful during the noughties, do you remember when they were dreadful?
Yeah.
They were selling the place out. I mean, it was,
Well,
an,
it was 8,000.
it was an easier sell, but they were
Yeah.
still selling it out week after week after week. I mean, we were having troubles getting 6,000, and we were actually going quite well compared to them. So,
Yeah. Well, for a good period of time, they were the best supported team
Oh,
in
yeah,
the league.
yeah.
Then they probably had the biggest stadium of the Irish team.
Yeah.
At the time, yeah.
At the time, yeah. So this is obviously the weekend of all the Derby matches. You know,
Yep.
Ospreys play Scarlets.
a game that's
Scarlets
always worth
are getting
watching.
shafted.
I mean,
Because
forget. I mean, there's a lot of talk about should Conor McGregor have got nominated for a Northeast Personality of the Year award. Forget Conor McGregor. Forget Cathal Penn. Forget MMA. You want to see real violence? Ospreys versus Clonetty. It never fails to disappoint.
Yeah,
it should be played at 11 o'clock at night after the watershed and come with a warning because it's a filthy game.
they're
The
about
Turks versus
15
the
miles up the
Jacks.
road from each other,
Yeah.
and they just hate each
Oh,
other.
they hate one another.
Yeah.
There's so much hatred. There's the self-loathing, of course, of the Ospreys fan because needs Swansea. Ugh.
Yeah.
And then their joint mutual hatred for Clonetty. Oh, it's just great.
The one-eyed Turks. Well,
That's usually what happens after the match.
anyway, the poor old Scarlets have been kind of shafted on the fixtures because they don't have a single home game in December. I think they've got one in the Challenge Cup they had one last
Champions
week against in the Champions Cup against Ulster, but they've no league games that are at home. So they've got
Isn't it just like it just seems to be a bit of a shambles? The whole
They've got
Pro
Cardiff
12, the
away.
way it's organised. Like, will this
It
not be a
is.
perfect opportunity for them? Like, it's that they should have what they have in London. They have
a double header.
the double header.
They,
They
do
tried
have
that.
They have that in Wales.
But no, they
They
haven't
tried
got
that.
it this
No,
season.
no, it's not. They tried it in Wales, and it between the rows
Easter.
between the
They had it in
WRU and RRW, and then the rows between the clubs, and how is it going to be split, and when are we going to have it? I mean, it's a case of a plague on all your houses. I mean, it has been tried.
It has been tried.
Yeah.
But like I was looking at the
last
results
two Easters it was.
well, they had it at Christmas last season, I think, as well, and it was 30-odd thousand there. But it's not on this season.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see how that pans out. But
And then the other big derby, another one of the big derbies is
There
Edinburgh
was a
against
feeling that,
Glasgow.
sorry, just to go back, there was a feeling amongst the other regions as well that the only team that was doing well out of that was Cardiff.
of course, but
Because
sure.
they were opening up their back pitch in their clubhouse and they were raking in the cat. And you know how they hate to do anything for one another.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, as I mentioned, Edinburgh play Glasgow in Murrayfield. So that's
or
not
as it's known in
The
Glasgow,
1872 Cup.
as it's known in Glasgow, the annual slaughter of the effeminates.
Yeah. Was it the 1872 or the 1874 Cup?
1872,
Cup, yeah.
But Edinburgh are just
The oldest club
typical
rugby.
mid-table fodder. They've won 4 matches, drawn 1 out of their 10.
I
They're
think you're
neither
flattering them.
well, they're neither anywhere near the top 6, and they're probably not going to be in the.
They won
bottom.
48-0 the weekend. They won
They're not.
48-0 at the weekend.
They're not good enough to worry about, and they're not bad enough to forget about.
Yeah,
That's it.
Do you know what they are? They're like Ulster under Solomons. That's what.
Because they're
that's
under
what-
Solomons too.
and they're under Solomons now as well. That's exactly what. And there's even the usual rake of South Africans. I wouldn't be surprised if one of them's a reverend. That's what. Remember, that's what Ulster were like under Solomons. I mean, they were good enough on their day to beat Leicester 33-0, if you remember that day.
Yeah.
And Rickard
And
Strauss's
then
brothers
to
playing.
finish second bottom in the league. That's what Ulster were like, and Edinburgh are exactly the same under Solomons.
Rickard Strauss's brothers playing for them at 12, and he seems to take a bit of a slagging because they want your man Scott back in the 12 jersey instead of him. So there's a bit of discord among Edinburgh fans for
Both of them.
for our Rickard's brother and their dog, in fairness. But yeah, that should be an interesting couple of games. So I'd say Glasgow are going to hammer them in I think the first game's in Glasgow. Glasgow are going to hammer them in that, and it's
First game's in Edinburgh.
Oh, is it?
I think Glasgow are going to hammer them in Edinburgh, and then it's going to come back to Glasgow, and Glasgow are going to hammer them in Glasgow.
It'll be a tight
Yeah,
game.
I don't
They'll only
see
hammer
it.
them by 20 points.
I mean, if Edinburgh do beat Glasgow, I mean, it'd be one of the great upsets in the league. I mean, because they're not in that league at all. They really aren't.
But they could. That might just do us a little favour that we need, because we've got Munster down in Thomond Park. They beat us down there last season.
Yeah.
You know, neither team are playing particularly well at the moment.
We need to give them the slaps this weekend. I mean, we really need to be up for this.
Question is,
They have more to lose, and just like when they played us in Lansdowne Road,
Yeah,
a
they
few
have more to
months ago,
lose, yeah.
they had more to lose then, and they've more to lose now. Their home record, you know, that's not looking so good this year. They're going to drop for, you know, they're going to, obviously whichever of us, we're almost equal in points, so whichever of us wins goes ahead of the other one. But it's kind of, it'll be a kick in the teeth for them after losing 3 games in a row to lose to us in Thomond Park, and I'd say the fear of that might drive them on to win the game.
Yeah.
You know,
question is who's going to be available. I mean,
That's
we
it,
don't
like,
know.
there's an Irish camp, isn't there?
Yeah, but we don't know whether it's an on-pitch or a lecture room type situation. So if it's the latter, I mean, players could be available. They have been in the past. If it's the former, no.
Here's an interesting thing, right? I believe that there is no.
Angels.
No, not, I don't actually. But there is a thing where there is no rules regarding any of the Irish players as to what games they're rested for over this period. They have a budget of minutes or of games or of whatever.
What, sorry, John?
They
They have a budget of...
They have a budget of minutes.
Thank you.
or whatever games that they can play. But for example, if you look at our minutes, you've got Heaslip and Toner are the only 2 that are high. The rest of the Ireland starters, especially which really only includes in terms of the fit ones, Ross and Rob Carney, neither of them are huge on the minutes.
Yeah.
So I think they're the only 2 guys that need to be rested.
And ironically, they're the only 2. They're the 2 guys
guys
who
you'd
actually...
want.
Well,
But-
not that you'd want. Who are... Sorry, they're the 2 guys who, you know, out of maybe all the rugby players in Ireland, actually don't need a rest that much. They're the 2 guys who, you know, seem to benefit from playing rugby rather than being rested.
I would say that both of them will need to be rested for at least one of the games of the next 3. But like, you could rest one against Ulster and the other against Cardiff and throw them both in down here. I don't think any of the rest of our players need to be rested. Possibly Goppert. Everybody else Madigan had a rest, and Fanning had a rest last week, or this week just gone. So I can see Madigan starting at 10 with Darcy and Fitzgerald outside him.
Yeah, I can see that as well.
I can see Redden starting at 9, and I can see pretty much our first choice pack going out to kick some ass.
Yeah.
Whether it'll be enough.
I
don't
mean,
know.
I got into an awful lot of slagging over my prediction of the last week, last match, and I still think, to a certain extent, I still think it holds true. In that,
some ill-advised comments in there. Dave.
I don't know. I think and I still think it holds true. I think the result of the match last time was down to Leinster. I mean, Leinster could either win it or lose it, and Leinster lost.
Certainly lost it, yeah.
By playing, you know, just some fairly dreadful rugby. I don't know if things have changed all that much. That both teams have not exactly moved on from that day.
Oh, well, I would hope that we're not out-passioned, as Jimmy Goppert put it last time. You know, I would hope that at least we get stuck into them. You know?
Both teams have been, to a certain extent, in terms of, you know, almost everything in terms of position in the league, how they're playing in Europe, even in terms of getting players back from injury and stuff. There's been a certain amount of treading water on both sides. So, you know, has things changed since that? I don't know.
It's a very low key build up to it, isn't it?
None of the Irish teams are playing well.
But like, I think that again, the Pro 12 or whoever comes up with the fixture list, I think it just doesn't work this time of the year, because there's too many players taken out of the games. Like if you remember back to sort of the mid-noughties when Eddie O'Sullivan was in charge, he used to take the players off to Portugal for warm weather training, so he used to nearly devalue the entire fixture because it was none of the players were even in the country for
But
it.
on the other side, you know, all the Welsh and all the Scottish players are available. I mean, we can't. The problem that the Pro 12 has always had is that, you know, its biggest market is Ireland, right? But it can't market the league for Ireland.
Of course.
That's the problem it's always had. It can't.
But you would suspect, with the Six Nations on the horizon in January or February, that the national teams are taking this opportunity to have camps.
Mm-hmm.
And surely the league is there as a facilitator to improve the national team. Like that's what it's really set up for.
Yeah.
And therefore that it run for the benefit of the national team.
We'd agree with that because that's our system. You'll find a very different argument in Wales.
The Welsh won't agree with
so,
that.
yeah.
You know,
Regional
and the
rugby
Scottish
is
would be just
at
running around
loggerheads.
circles, chasing their own tail. But the Welsh would certainly disagree with that. They say no, the Pro 12 exists for its own sake, and that the international rugby is merely a distraction.
Sadly, a lot of the regions fans would say that the Pro 12 is a joke, and let's go and join the English League.
No, they're never going to join.
They
the English
know,
League.
but they still say it.
Yeah, but when you
forever
think
running
about
it down.
75,000 people regularly go and watch Wales play in the Millennium Stadium. They even go 50-odd thousand went to watch them at 7 in the morning during the World Cup in New Zealand. But very few of them go through the turnstile of any of the 4 provincial teams or regional teams.
Welsh rugby
But
is
the ones
entirely
that do-
disconnected from itself. Regional rugby seems to exist in its own bubble. Club rugby seems to exist in its own bubble. And international rugby seems to exist in its own bubble. And I don't think there's if you were to do a Venn diagram, I don't think there'd be a huge intersection between all three.
No, and
And that
also
seems to be the way. And it's not like here where, it's almost even the idea of splitting, say, the provincial sides away from from the international team or from the club game. It's almost impossible to imagine because of how closely interlinked everything is and how interdependent everything is. In Wales, they don't seem to have
but
that.
Dave, even going back 40 years ago, when there was there was a Leinster and a Munster, but they didn't, where the clubs kind of dominated and each club was its own independent entity. There was still always that desire for a guy, or the club indeed, to want to get their fella on the national team
it was hugely
or the interprovincial.
I mean, some clubs,
team.
as maybe you might you might have heard of some clubs who've got a bad reputation. So ardent were they to get their guy onto the international team. But that was a good thing. I mean, it showed that they want.
I know which club you mean.
Yeah,
Okay.
but they wanted their guys to be playing for the international team. Do Wales want their guys? Do the Welsh regions want their players playing international rugby? Maybe
They don't really
question,
care.
do they?
They don't really care. I mean, it all evolved out of a situation where
So just to take one of the problems that the Irish team has actually had is that the rivalry between, we say, Leinster and Munster is so fierce. But it's not a rivalry. It's a rivalry to get more of our players onto the national team.
Yeah.
Again, the ultimate aim is the national team. I mean, that's so the RFU in a way has benefited from that rivalry because it's increased interest in the national team. Whereas Wales, it seems to be the opposite.
well, even before there was a Munster or Leinster professional team, or Ulster or Connacht, there was a Munster and Leinster branch to which all the clubs were affiliated in Munster and Leinster. So the entities always existed. In Wales, they decided to get in the regional route, 2003,
And then didn't really.
And well, the Welsh Union didn't have the money to finance the thing, so they had to abdicate responsibility to the guys with the few bob, the benefactors. And then it backfired on them, and they weren't able to get control of it ever again. So it's and now it's developed into an entity over 12 years that you can't put the genie back in the bottle. You can't make the fans of the regions, small and all as they may be, go away again.
See,
they're there.
The thing
They
that the Welsh
exist.
fan doesn't understand is the only thing that's keeping rugby in Wales alive is the Pro 12, right? Because if the Pro 12 ceases to exist, it's not the Welsh that'll go in with the English. Because the English aren't interested in the Welsh. Because the Welsh don't bring any money. All the English are interested in is money. Who brings the money? Ireland brings the money. If the Pro 12 falls, Ireland goes in with England. Wales, Scotland is left as a rump kind of thing to do whatever it is they want to do. So Wales should realise that the Pro 12 is their last best hope of survival.
Yeah, but they just see these historical fixtures of the glory days in the 70s or probably before, when Cardiff played Bath and Newport
Yada,
played.
yada. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I used
Gloucester
to.
and so on, so
I
on.
used to be thin, and I used to have dreadlocks. Neither of those are true anymore.
But I suppose it just shows you the difference. Today it's announced good news was Devon Toner signed a 2-year deal. Interesting choice of words that the union came up with. They said funded by the IRFU, but do we really care
it's a
who
central-
pays his
I
wages?
couldn't
It's a
give a
central
rat's
contract.
ass.
First of all, it benefits Irish rugby by keeping
An international
Devon,
player.
international,
Yeah.
possibly a line in the next tour or whatever. Anyway, an Irish international, keeping him playing in Ireland. More importantly, keeping him playing for Leinster, and the union control them, but it's another feather in the hat of the IRFU for keeping their star players back at home.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, they've now got 3 locks on central contracts.
Since they got since Johnny Sexton frightened the bejesus out of them, they've upped their game considerably. I don't think there's anyone really likely to leave now for the foreseeable future.
But that's where all the money for the marquee NIQ players has gone.
Well, that's true. It's gone to nail down the Irish players. But at the end of the day, we're quite happy with that.
Who do you want?
I'd much rather have Rob Kearney in the team.
Yeah.
I Sean O'Brien. I'd much rather have a Sean O'Brien and him there inspiring the next Sean O'Brien and the next Sean O'Brien. I'm much more happy with that. I mean, yes, we've taken the hit, right? We said, okay, the IRFU have used their, if you like, their annual pot that they're putting aside for wage, and they're using them to keep Irish players in Ireland, which means that we'll have to sign maybe lesser foreign players. That's a roundabout, but the swing is we have the Irish player,
And you might take a small short-term hit at the moment, but if the national team is successful, because the whole thing is driven by the success of the national team, because then there's bums on seats, there's interest in it, there's sponsorship deals and so on. Once that money starts flowing back in, because they did take, they couldn't sell out.
A bit of a hit,
they couldn't sell out for a couple of seasons. The team was in
the 2010 opening debacle.
Yeah, but look how quickly they reacted to that. In fairness to them, I mean, the IRFU is not a. I often said it operates with glacial speed and then strikes like a cobra. But when they needed to change that ticketing policy, they changed it, and they changed it within the space of weeks. And they made sure it didn't happen again.
But it was a perfect storm. What happened was that there was
an extra match, and
there's 80,000 people in going to Croke Park.
Yeah, so they figured.
So that they had loads of people who possibly had never gone to an international match before now had an opportunity to, there was 20,000 people on Hill 16 and 60,000 seats or whatever the configuration.
They got to be cocky.
And all of a sudden that was reduced down to 50,000, but they still kept the prices at a premium level, like £100 for the South African match. I remember.
Yeah, in fact, it was £100 each game, and you had to buy all 4. It was the original starting position for every seat in the house.
I thought they got.
It was unbelievable.
I thought they got greedy, but they learned their lesson. I mean, they realised that
reacted.
You sell more seats for less money, but you get more people in, and then you end up making more money. And they reacted.
Well, there's a fella who lives down in Westmead seems to have made a fair few bob from doing something similar to that.
There you go.
Yeah. Sorry, I was wondering.
Well, the best way to sell out your national stadium
is to have a successful team.
I can recommend this to any international team in the world. Just hire Joe Schmidt. It's that simple. Hire Joe Schmidt. Your national team will get so good that everybody will want to see it. And there'll be queues.
Now the other side of that is the 1990s approach. Be really shit. It was still sold out. But I think that they've managed it, and I think that what it'll repay them in terms of what'll happen is, I mean, we're already quite pleased with the stuff that's in our academy and the volumes that are coming through. I mean, if they continue to keep star players in Ireland playing for successful provinces, feeding into a successful international team, then the academies won't be big enough to hold the potential
and that's there. Probably the problem, that you could end up getting fellas who mightn't be as good at 19 or 20 years of age
who miss the cut,
and then they go off and play abroad, but they kind of they mature or develop into better players than the fellas that remained in the
academy. Brilliant example of that is Alan O'Connor, who's now making hay playing in the Heineken Cup for Ulster. He was in the sub-academy in Leinster and was deemed surplus requirements. Now the ironic thing is, Ulster have a clatter of good second rows, and Leinster were short of good second rows. How he ever ended up there.
But hindsight is like that. I mean,
of course,
it's easy to be wise after the event.
I believe he's a young brother who's still in the Leinster sub academy, so let's not make the same mistake twice.
I mean, it's not as if we're short of numbers in it. So that's what the IRFU have done. I mean, Devin Toner's just the latest, and certainly the tallest flagpole on the on the hill of success that they've managed to build over the last since Johnny left.
Well, Ulster as well are complaining about their academy and how it's turned out a fair few 3/4 over the last few years. It's turned out no back row players. Okay, they lost Ferris and they lost Pollock, but outside of those two, they haven't developed a massive. I mean, Henry and Wilson are not the youngest men in the world.
These things go in cycles. So, I mean, it's not like Ulster do have a reputation of turning out back rows. I mean, traditionally they have done.
You have to go back a bit, though.
I know, but it's not as if it's completely alien. It's not like us in scrum halves. It's been. When was the last time we turned out a really, really good scrum half? Scally probably, and then before that probably John Robbie. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Whereas Ulster have a history of turning out, at least passable back row forwards. So I don't know. I think they might be just in a bit of a cycle that way. It's like for a while there, all Munster seemed to be able to produce was second rows, and they couldn't find a player anywhere else in the pitch but second row. They had hundreds of second rows and hookers,
scrum halves.
Yeah, so it's just some provinces are just better at certain positions than others. I mean, you look at us at the moment. We've got hundreds of back row players, hundreds.
We seem to have
had
trying
to convert one fella into centre, but that seems.
So what's his name was playing for London Irish in their walloping against Wasps in the Ricoh Arena. There came on as a sub. Conor Gilson.
Was he?
Yeah, he came on as he was on the bench and came on. Certainly at one point I got bored watching it after a while.
Actually, that brings me on to sort of another point that.
Wasps gave London Irish and doing.
Wasps for 28,000 at their match in the Ricoh, which obviously there's been announced that we're going to play there in the European Cup.
Yeah.
In January. On Saturday at 1 o'clock.
It's available tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Tickets will have been available by the time you've listened or watched this.
Tickets will have been available in the past, tomorrow morning, yesterday.
But there was 28,000, I presume, as you mentioned last week, they probably gave away a load of free ones. But at the same time, it still means that people took up that opportunity to go to the match.
Oh, yeah.
So they have a fan base there. Like it's the Midlands and
Starting
England.
to look
It's
good.
kind of the Midlands and the West Country are the two places where rugby union is pretty important to people.
All your man needs is a few more quid and he'll be able to buy Coventry City and tell Wasps to fuck off, which is ultimately his goal.
Who knows?
And there was some other good news, like Joe Smith wasn't announced RT's Manager of the Year, which obviously it's it
was a bit of a one-horse race in fairness.
I suppose so. Like as I read somewhere today, it said, how many votes did he beat Roddy Collins by?
Yeah, I mean, there are some guys have done some good stuff in Gaelic games, but like when Ireland wins a championship, it's a major thing. It's the Six Nations Championship. So I think,
and the Tin Hat, I guess, was obviously,
and then the Autumn International Series as well. So I think that deserved, but not unexpected.
And he can do it while having a broken appendix. Is there nothing this man cannot do?
And Drico picked up another award.
The Hall of Fame thing.
I didn't see it.
Looked genuinely surprised, apparently. I didn't see it either.
I saw a clip of it, and he didn't know about it, and his parents came in with the prize.
Yeah. So. Brilliant. Believe he had a hard job keeping a lid on it, that's understandably. And your parents coming in and giving you an award.
Yeah. Anyway, listen, thanks a million, boys. And thanks a million for watching, and have a very happy Christmas. Cheers.